That, my friends, is the sound of the TB3. This is the latest in the Roland AIRA range. If you've been watching our kind of hot coverage, you'll have noticed that we did the TR8, which is the drum machine, 808, 909 kind of drum machine. This TB3 is a sort of reimagining of the classic TB303 bassline. Here it is in all its glory. If I go here, we've got the biggest change, really, you'll see immediately, is this illuminated touchpad, which doubles up as a keyboard, XY play. Can't see why you'd imagine you want to using that. Envelope, the modulation matrix, and pattern select. Quick look at the connections. We've got headphone out, stereo output, MIDI I/O, USB connection here, and power, comes with a power supply. Now, obviously the 303 is a very iconic instrument in the same way as the 808 was. 303 perhaps more so because it's a single purpose, and it's sort of almost the voice of acid, which is kind of early dance, rebellious kind of, you know, music. And it was originally a kind of used and imagined by Roland as an auto accompaniment thing for perhaps people who are playing sort of more traditional gigs. It got hijacked by the dance community and sort of abused and used to create a whole genre of music. They change hands for stupid amounts of money now, the real thing, and probably getting a little bit beaten up. But the thing is, other people have made them. And it's, the pressure's been building on Roland to actually, come on, let's have it. So, you know, there it is. We should go through what we've got on the front panel. We'll start with the knobs. We've got volume control, we've got cutoff, resonance, accent control, and effect. There is no envelope depth like there is on the original 303, but that's done via pressing the envelope button, envelope mod, and dialing it in via here. This also has a pressure sensitivity, which allows you to bring in modulation depth via pressure. So if we go through and find a couple of presets here, go back to the keyboard, you can see that I'm bringing in various pressure modulation kind of effects. And the thing is what you were hearing there, you were hearing effects as well, because this has also got an effects generator in it and a lot of other synth voices. In fact, there are 3 banks of synth voices. We've got the A's, which are supposed to be 303. In fact, 1 and 2 are, this is the saw and this is the square voice. Then as we go up into B, these are various bass sounds, and then we get into bank C, which are more your kind of unusual synth sounds. I mean, I guess, you know, there are similarities with the Korg K-oscillator type thing, where you've got a synth engine under the hood that you can't, you know, get at the actual voicing structure, but you can flip presets and modulate various parameters. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. What there is, in fact, is a 4-oscillator synth engine with an effects engine. The documentation, which is very sort of thin on the ground, says doesn't say any more than that, but you know, suffice to say there are a number of sounds that they're all monophonic, though, it's worth saying, although some of them are multi-tuned, so you get sort of harmonies and things. Now the thing is, listening to the actual 303 sounds, I'd say it's got a pretty good emulation. I mean, I'm not a 303 nut, so I can't say, you know, bring my 303 out and go, it's exactly the same. But from what I've heard, reports coming back from other people that I've done testimonials from artists who've been involved in the development of this and who have also been exposed to it for the first time, they're going, actually, this does sound pretty damn good in terms of emulation. Let's go through a few presets. We've got the tempo here. Dial in, no tempo subdivisions. Let's come back out and go back to some sort of classic 303 type sounds and choose a few patterns. If we go down to another bank, try this one. This was the Right, let's come out. There we go, that's more of a sort of Josh Wink style thing. I'll take a slow filter sweep. Quite a selection of sounds there, and we can flip through and sort of select them at will. I think where it also is interesting is obviously the operation of the step sequencer, which is really simple. We've got a real-time record mode as well, so we can go into step record, and we just basically input the keys here. We've got an accent button and a slide button for tie, and a clear for rest buttons. And then we can affect the level of the accent as we go. Something that's also interesting is we've got a swing. So if I press this, I can dial in a swing or shuffle value. It's also possible to sync the unit. I can sync it via the USB MIDI, or I can take a good old-fashioned MIDI cable, which is coming from the TR8 over here, and plug it in, and it just automatically accepts clock as it's set up. So it enables me to start messing around by going to the envelope. Yeah, awesome. You can get some pretty extreme sounds. Obviously some of the effects in there are, you know, distortion and compression, so you really kind of get this process sound, because obviously a lot of people used to use the TB3, put it through distortion and, you know, various other effects, so they've kind of got a bunch of those sort of classic sounds that you could get without having to hook it up to all of those equipment, those extra bits of equipment. So a few more things to note about the MIDI operation. Basically this transmits MIDI, these transmit MIDI CC. Clock is, you can set it to auto sync in. The clock will come from the MIDI in or USB. In fact, when you hook this up, you come with a MIDI driver, a USB driver, which gives you both MIDI I/O and audio I/O, so you can actually use this as your audio interface, although there's no way of recording anything other than the TB3. I suppose it might get you out of a tight spot at some point, so I suppose it could be useful. But so a bit more about the internal recording. If we come to this sequence here, so if I just hit play on this patch, we go into step recording. We've got 16 steps, but we can actually have up to, if I go up to 32 steps. So if now I play, it's essentially a 2-bar pattern, which is quite handy. So that gives me the ability. I can also set it up to be, you know, anything other than the standard steps, like 1, 2, anything in between. So that gives us that capability, and that's quite easy to set up. So pattern sequencing is actually a bit easier to do on this than the 303, because I remember looking at the 303 once and just thinking, I don't understand this at all, what with the rest and what have you. The thing about this display, it gives you, you know, rest, accent, slide time, up and down. It's much easier to see what's going on and program if that's your bag. Or alternatively, obviously you can play it from a MIDI keyboard, though it doesn't respond to velocity, it's worth mentioning there. You can send in MIDI controllers to access the cutoff and the resonance and the front panel parameters, but no velocity and still only monophonic operation. One more mode to check out, we've got this scatter button. Scatter is like a looping kind of, I guess, buffer type effect that you get on the TR8 as well. Press play. This then affects the depth, and the parameter button then changes the type of scatter effect. So again, that's, I mean, limited use. It might well float somebody else's boat. Didn't really do much for me. One other thing worth mentioning, actually, quickly, if I come back to the keyboard mode and I press my pattern, I press and hold the keyboard, I can transpose the sequence to any key I like that way as well. So that gives me sort of the ability to real-time play, and that's quite handy, I must say. So there we have it, that's the Roland TB3. It definitely sounds like a 303. I mean, certainly to my ears, a very familiar sound, and also you get those additional process sounds with the additional things of the synth engine. And in the room, some of those sounds, as well as the 303 sounds themselves, really do shake. It's got plenty of bottom end and depth, so don't worry about that so much. I think really for the price, which is about 245 street, it still feels a little bit overpriced to me, even though you consider it's probably 10 times cheaper than an actual 303. It doesn't have, you know, the capability to edit some of those 4 oscillator synth sounds. It's pretty much a preset machine, and that's perhaps something that I think, you know, means that it feels like it should be a little bit less expensive. When you consider it's got the audio interface, which I don't really, you know, I question the sort of need for something like that. I think if they could have shaved 70, 80 quid off it, it would have felt like a much more kind of in the pocket buy, yeah, obviously, because to buy a real 303 is going to cost you a fortune. If you want hardware rather than a plug-in, then, you know, aside from one of the other clones, which are going to be, you know, upward of $1,000, you're still getting a lot of 303 sound for the money. For me though, I would say out of the two we've reviewed so far, which is the TR8 and the TB3, the TR8 definitely takes the biscuit. Okay, it's 400 quid. This is less expensive, but it doesn't seem to do as much to my mind. There will be more AIRA stuff to come. We've got the VT3, which I haven't had time to review before I have to send this back, but hopefully we'll get coverage of that. But also the System 1, which does look very interesting. Stay tuned to Sonicstate for more information on those models too. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.